you liked it then? Can you believe it's a movie?
No.
Great.
It's a long time in coming, actually. So the book was published 17 years ago.
The author Graham Greene used to write in his introductions about novels that he wrote that were meant to be seen before they were read. Did you ever have that inclination when you were, that this would be seen?
No. And this was the first novel I wrote. It was the first fiction I ever wrote. So just getting to the end of it was my goal. And my goal in any of my novels is that people should want to keep turning the pages to find out what happens next. So I guess I'm fixated on story rather than visual. But of course, there's lots to look at in this one in particular because it's kind of epic. There's lots of places. It goes to lots of. We haven't been to Egypt yet. That's the second part of it. So it travels. So, but it's definitely not. I can see this as a movie. No, not me.
Do you still connect with the story the same way you did 17 years ago?
No. Well, I've written because so I wrote. It took about 3 years to write the book. It was published in 1997. I did a lot of speaking about it all over the place. And then I wrote Good Harbor, and then I wrote Last Days of Dogtown, and Day After Night, and The Boston Girl coming out in a couple of weeks. And so I get into those worlds. I really inhabit the stories and the personalities that I'm writing about, and I live with them for 3 years. So these are distant relatives for me now. It's really, and I feel that readers have a much closer relationship with them than I do. So, which is fine, which is as it should be.
Does the film give it new resonance at all, or are you looking at it in a different way?
It's hard for me to separate what I think I wrote from what's up on the screen. But I do know that my readers have let me know in no uncertain terms that they're really excited about this. And so far what I've heard from audiences is that they like it a lot. So that's terrific. That feels great.
Is that true? Did you like it? But what's the enduring appeal that it's still being read, and I think you told me there are 3 million
in print.
Books in print. That's astounding. Why is this so powerful still?
I think there are a few reasons, several of them. One of them is that it gives voice to women in the Bible. And for people for whom the Bible is scripture, is holy myth, there are like 10,000 personal names in the Hebrew Bible, and only 10% of them belong to women. And most of them don't say anything. So to have an opportunity to get to know one of those characters, to bring her into the foreground, I think that allows female readers, but not only female, male readers as well, to connect with this other world of characters. So that's part of it. But for a lot of, I've heard from people for whom the Bible is not particularly salient, and the mother-daughter relationships are interesting to them, the dynamics between women as friends. I've gotten amazing emails over the years. One woman wrote to me, she said, after I read The Red Tent, I decided I was going to follow my passion and become an artisanal baker. And sounds funny, but I think that because the book honors the work of women's hands, which is bread and weaving and taking care of children, with real reverence for that work, I think that speaks to some people. So there's that. I think the other reason it's had legs is because mothers and grandmothers and granddaughters have shared it. So it winds up being intergenerational, which was a wonderful surprise. One of my first bookstore events, there was a grandmother, a mother, and a granddaughter, and I certainly had never thought that would happen. So, but I know that it's handed down.
Yeah, and now it's good TV.
All right.
And do you feel as if it did stay true to what you wrote and your intentions in writing it?
In a lot of ways, yes. But when The Red Tent first came out, I was taken to task for not staying true to the Bible a lot. I heard from readers who were not happy with that.
Well, your book's 300 pages. Dina, Genesis 34 is.
No, I know,
a
but
page and a half.
it's also the way that I described other people, like Jacob and Joseph and the matriarchs. For people who read the Bible through a particular lens, they didn't want to read about those people as human beings. They were more iconic. So I got a lot of pushback on that. So the fact that there are differences between what I wrote and what the film is, you know, I don't feel like I have any leg to stand on there. But I do think that the movie is very true to sort of core values of the book, which is women's agency, strength, respect for women's work, and the importance of women's relationships within the family. And this is more in the book than in the movies, but friendship as well, that even extra-familial relationships are things that keep women alive, even and sustain them, even in really tough times. So I'm really happy that that really comes through loud and clear in the miniseries.
Female relationships, I mean,
that's my thing.
That's your thing.
That's my thing.
What about Dina herself? Do you still carry her around at all?
I really don't. I mean, it's like it's a long time ago, and you know, I just spent 4 years with someone named Addie Baum, and so that's been like at the foreground. I'm fond of all of these characters, as I'm fond of all of the characters in the books, but it's like I haven't seen them in a long time. Mm. But again, it's I think that disappoints readers because you have a closer relationship, and especially if you're reading it for the first time or rereading it, or it had a particular meaning in your life, which I hear from a lot of people. But that's terrific. That's what gives any kind of book life, is the reader's response to it. Mm.
Startling to see it dramatized in this particular way?
Startled. Really gratified. I mean, the book was published 17 years ago, and there was a little early interest in making a film about it. I got emails from people who loved it and wanted to make a film who had no filmmaking experience. And then Lifetime contacted us like 2.5, 3 years ago, and I thought, okay, maybe. I mean, I really had no faith that anything was going to come from that either. But it was very different. Obviously, you heard from Nancy before, and it was a passion project, and that's what happened. So there were people at Lifetime who really wanted to make this happen, pushed it through. And ta-da! And it felt like it happened very quickly once the final papers were signed. Mm. The book, it was filmed someone will correct me, last summer in Morocco. Almost all of it is in Morocco, which I think you can really see the light and the.
What, you were thinking soundstage in Queens? Yeah. This is Lifetime. This is
very hot, very dirty, and hot. But it's I think that you can feel the dirtiness, the heat, the grit. It's not a verdant scene. I mean, there's not lots of plants. There are no trees. So it's but it felt to me like it's sort of like 1, 2. It was 17 years waiting, and then 1, 2, 3. There's a movie. Mm. So this is an amazing experience.
You have questions?
In the audience?
She's all yours if you. There's some.
There's a mic.
There's mics here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Going around. We'd love to hear from you. Anybody? Questions for Anita? Please.
So we heard from Nancy that this was a passion. Right? We heard from Nancy that this was a passion project for her in terms of reading a book and seeing in a movie. And I wondered if you have a book that you've always been attached to that someone else has written that you'd want to see in a movie.
Somebody else's book that I'd like to see as a movie? You know, I'm not one of those people who's like, I have a lot of friends who cast books. You know, they're reading a book and they're casting the, you know, who's in Hollywood that they would want to see in these books. And I'm trying to think. I know I'm trying to think of a book. There was one that I read not long ago that I thought would make a great movie. Oh, I know. All the Light We Cannot See. I think will make a great movie, actually, which is a World War II book told from 2 very different perspectives. And I think that rarely happens to me that I can really see it as a movie, but I think that book would be a great movie.
Yeah. Were you on the set at all for this, and did you?
I had nothing to do with this.
You'd had anything
No.
to do with adapting it or anything?
Nope. Nope.
And I'm not familiar with all your other works, but did any of your other novels take on a biblical
No.
story? Can you talk about why or why not?
Yeah, all of my novels they're very different from one another. They're set in different time periods. They have a different voice. Good Harbor is contemporary and a very small cast of characters. Last Days of Dogtown is rural Massachusetts in the mid-1800s with 0 Jews in it. It's my only book with 0 Jews in it. It was a relief. And then it was different. It was fun. And then I wrote Day After Night, which is set in Palestine post-Holocaust. So, and then the newest book also has it's about an immigrant girl, among other immigrant girls in Boston at the turn of the 20th century. So they're all really different, and they do all share an interest in women's friendships and resilience, human resilience. So those are the 2 themes that run through all of them. But what attracts me is a story rather than, a series. So it's got to be a compelling story, or seed of an idea for a story or a setting that calls out to me.
Thank you. Anita, if I can take you back 17 years or probably 20 years
Yeah.
ago to ask you what brought this story to you. In the Bible, I think Dina is a very small
Yep.
voice and maybe 2 or 3 lines. And I'm interested in what created the story, how did it come about, and how you fabricated it from that.
Well, I had been writing nonfiction for a long time, and I thought I would like a change of, and a freelancer too. So I actually went looking for a job. I thought I'd get a job, and I realized it didn't work out for me. I had to be my own boss. So I thought I would try writing a novel, really to challenge myself. I had never written fiction. I'd never taken a fiction writing class. I'd been writing a long time on deadlines. I'd written some nonfiction books also. So I wasn't somebody who always wanted to write a novel about, I didn't have a novel in a drawer. So I thought I would borrow from the great resource of stories in Western civilization, which is the Bible. Lots of people have done that. And I actually I thought I would write about Rachel and Leah and their relationship with each other, because there had to be more than arguing about who was sleeping with Jacob. So, who was driving the carpool? Who was in charge of what? How did that work? How did that family function? So that's really where I started, but I didn't know what the plot was going to be. I actually, as a first-time novelist, needed a plot, and I didn't want to just their story sort of fizzles in a way and turns into the story of Jacob and Joseph. So I kept reading, and then I got to the Dina story, and there's a question there. There's a mystery there, because she doesn't say anything. Right, it's told, and actually that's dramatized pretty clearly, that you don't hear her explaining what happened. It's told about her. It's 2 of her brothers claim that she was violated, and I'm not the first person to notice that it doesn't seem like a rape. Certainly, the prince and his father do not act like rapists. They are willing to pay any bride price, including the insane agreement to circumcise the entire town, which essentially would make them part of Jacob's family. So I thought maybe actually it wasn't. Maybe it was a love story, and so that's where it came from. And I thought there's the plot. And early on, I decided to give it to her to speak in her voice, which turned out to be a very lucky choice. Wasn't all that thought through, because it focused the story. It's very much from her point of view. So she can't know everything that her brothers did, what their lives were like as shepherds. She could only know a little bit of that. She didn't really know about her father's tradition of worshiping El. So it was very focused in that direction. So that's the genesis story of the Red Tent.
Did it make you nervous, cribbing from, the Bible?
No, I felt like I had permission, because and actually it's really interesting when I speak to Christian audiences, because Jews have a lot more freedom with text. There's this great line in the Talmud: you can turn it on its head to make sense, and the tradition of Midrash, which I did not consider the Red Tent to be, But there is this tradition of imaginative commentary, which is, some of it's really wild. And so we have permission to imagine what Cain and Abel said to each other, and to imagine what Abraham did before he served the stranger. So that's part of our tradition. So I had freedom to do that. That and the fact that I was a 20th century American person who read a lot of novels and has a degree in literature. So though you put those two things together, and I did not feel that I was violating anything. Some people did think I was, but I did not. I did not.
Yeah. What are you working on now, and where do you live, and what were you influenced by?
I live in the Boston area. That's the easy one. What was I influenced by? As a writer, I think everything influences what I write. Everything I read, everything I watch on television, every story I've ever been told, every person I've ever met. And at the moment, I'm not actively writing a book because I have a book coming. I was working on a book for the last 4 years, and it's coming out in December, so I will be kind of on the road with that. And I don't have plans for the next one just yet. I'm breathing. And this is also, actually, this has been very exciting. It's also taken up a fair amount of time. So, I'm gonna kick back and decide what's next. So.
Hi. When thinking about the red tent, did you draw on personal experience? Did you have a strong female connection in your family? Generational?
Not so much. I did draw on personal experience in lots of ways, though. I remember when I wrote the book, I was younger. I remembered vividly childbirth, my childbirth and the childbirth stories that my friends told me in excruciating detail. You remember that when you've just had a baby? Every minute by minute, the blow by blow. And it really stayed with me how that was this incredibly transformative experience for women, in particular physically in their own bodies. And that there's a line in there it's sort of the battlefield for women. I mean, it's where you find out what you're made of, what your courage is, and so that informs a lot of the Red Tent. As those of you who've read it know, there's a lot of childbirth. There's a lot of attempts at controlling fertility, trying to get pregnant, trying not to get pregnant, trying to maintain a pregnancy, trying to abort a pregnancy, and then trying to survive childbirth. So I find that's personal experience, and it's not just my own. I have one child. I only went through it once. It was enough. And we stopped with perfection. Those of you who know Amelia will agree with me. And Aaron knows Amelia.
That's true.
It's true.
I agree.
And so that had a lot, that felt very personal to me. So it's not exactly the generational thing, but I created these 4 mothers. Who wouldn't want 4 mothers, right? Taking care of 4 different parts of you. And so, in a way, I think that's sort of wish fulfillment. I think we could all use as many mothers as we can get. Right? Oh, we have one more question. Where was it? Okay. Anybody?
Last one.
When is it going to be shown? Well, not tonight. The first part is going to be shown on December 7th. And the second part will be shown on December 8th on Lifetime TV. So, and I think there's quite the cliffhanger right there at the end, right? It's like, I don't think I'll watch the second one. You cannot not watch the second one, right? Right. So please tell your friends.
Are you traveling around the country promoting the film at all?
No. I was in LA, and I did that. And I'm doing this here. In Boston, we're doing another showing. I'm talking to the press a lot. But the movie is going to be out really soon, and it will speak for itself, I think. Okay.
Thanks, guys, for
Thank
your
you.
questions very much. And thank you to Anita.
Thank you.